Prosperity team. This is Dr. Money coming to you from the prosperity corner of the universe where silliness is sacred and nobody's perfect. I am your POP, your professor of prosperity, and I'm here so that all of our lives can pop with prosperity. Many of us use our prosperity affirmations and we might say something like, I am wealthy, I'm a millionaire, I'm a billionaire, and we keep that in our consciousness. And I think those affirmations are fun, but my experience has been that in order to get to that place, there has to be a lot of change in consciousness, and probably there's going to be quite a bit of work involved too, all the way around. It would be could possibly be a radical change in lifestyle. And that reminds me of a story of a gentleman who went out in the middle of a lake or a river, and he saw this person fishing, and he said, "My goodness, you've caught so many fish." And the man in the boat says, "Oh yes," he said, "my family's been fishing these rivers for years, and I know where the best places are, and I can get plenty of fish." And he said, "Goodness," he said, "could you get as many as you want?" He said, "Oh yes," he said, "I could get as many as my boat could handle." And the other person said, "Well, why don't you maybe get another boat, and then you could have two boats?" And he said, "Well, then what would I do?" He said, "Well, you'd fill both boats up with fish." And he said, "Well, what would I do then?" He said, "Well, you would sell the fish, and then you could make some money." And he said, "Okay, well, then what would I do?" And he said, "Well, you could get a whole fleet of ships." And he said, "Well, okay, well, then what would I do?" And he said, "Well, you'd have a big business, and you'd be in the fishing industry, and you could bring hundreds of pounds of fish or thousands of pounds of fish, and you could sell them, and you could get very, very wealthy." And he said, "Well, how would I do that?" He said, "Well, you probably need to get an office and a staff and to be able to handle everything." And the man said, "Well, then what would I do?" And he says, "Well, you would make a whole lot of money, so you could actually do anything you wanted then." And he said, "So, like, do what?" And he said, "Well, you could take off and go fishing." And the man says, he was already fishing, so he didn't have to go through all of that. And that's the way it is with prosperity abundance. Probably some things that we may have as a goal may take us a tremendous amount of effort and actually take us away from the very joy that we're seeking when we think about getting a certain amount of money. It is okay to have that money. It certainly is. I am just saying that we can often get what we're looking for in the present moment without having to take that same route that was described to the fisherman. We can have that wealth of being in the present moment, and we don't have to wait until we accomplish anything. So let's take a deep breath, and as we inhale our good. And as we exhale our intention that all other beings receive their good as well. We want this good to circulate through everything, through our own minds and hearts, and we want to be a conduit so that what we send out to other people is this love, this sense of well-being, this sense of good. We don't want to send out judgment. We don't want to send out jealousy. We don't want to send out those vibratory downers. We want to uplift our minds and our hearts, and we want that practice of uplifting those aspects of ourselves because they're always there. The joy, the sense of well-being, the sense of abundance, they're inherent in our being. I mean, they're residents within us. And we want to share that. That's what we want to share. That's the intimacy of being together, of being a couple, of being a family, of being a community, of being a world full of human beings that are in one tribe, the human race. So let's participate and join and belong to each other. This is Dr. Money, and I want you to remember one more thing for sure. And that is that I love you.